Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to thank and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hi everyone, and welcome to Room by Room, the Home Organisation Science Insights podcast, produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element, with expert knowledge from professionals in the field. I'm your host, Gabriella Joustra, coming to you from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. We're here today to talk about storage spaces, but before we get going, I'll get my guest today to introduce herself. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm really well. Bit cold today. It's winter in Sydney and it's a bit chilly.
It's also cold here where I am, but we've got the heater on, which is good.
Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yes. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name's Jane Cadwgan. I have a funny, really hard to pronounce Welsh name, but I'm an Aussie. And I'm a professional organiser, or otherwise known as a declutter coach. And I live in Sydney, Australia. And when I'm not helping people organise their houses, I like to sing in a community choir and I row in a boat on Sydney Harbour very early in the mornings.
That must be freezing.
Oh, it has been, but it's so lovely. It's very good for my mental health to go out in nature early in the morning when it's all still and beautiful. So I'm very lucky to live in Sydney. And so I have a business. So I go into people's houses and I help them get their houses beautifully organised.
Amazing. So how would you define storage spaces?
Well, very good question. And different people think about storage spaces very differently. So it can be, I think of it as more things you don't access regularly. So it's not your kitchen cupboards. It might be a really upper cupboard that's hard to get to. It might be your cupboard closet in another room. It might be your garage. It might be an off-site storage unit that you pay for that's at a commercially run storage place. So there's lots of different places. So I think it's stuff that you don't access very often.
Okay, great. So we're going to start off with just a little bit of an introducer. It's called Have You Met Jane? So we'll just start off with maybe your favorite things or the first things that come to your mind when you hear the words. So the first one is book.
I love books. I love them very much. My favourite book is Anne of Green Gables.
Mm-hmm. Why do you like it?
Well, there's lots in the series. I don't know. I read it when I was quite young and it's just a lovely story. It's about a girl who makes a lot of mistakes but eventually turns into this wonderful, well-rounded, successful person.
Lovely. What about a movie or a documentary, TV show?
Well, because of my age, I think I saw it at a very impressionable time. I love Star Wars. And so that's one of my top movies that I just love.
Is there a podcast that you listen to or that you enjoy?
I love podcasts. One of the podcasts that I really look forward to every week, and it's every week, so I find that really lovely. It's called Happier with Gretchen Rubin, who's an American writer and very popular, and she does write about happiness, and I think we all could do with a lot more happiness, encouraging ourselves to be happier.
Yeah, I definitely think so, particularly after the last few years we've had.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there a role model that you look up to?
Well, again, because of my age, there really weren't a lot of female role models when I was growing up. It was actually quite tricky. And the first one that's popped into my head, again with the kind of Star Wars sort of thing, science fiction, is it was a TV show that I used to watch a lot of called Doctor Who. And one of the companions on Doctor Who back when I was a kid was Sarah Jane Smith. And she was a very feisty journalist, and she looked a little bit like me, so I could really relate to her. And so there weren't a lot around when I was a little girl.
I watched the new Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah.
But she was on there, so I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
I loved her.
Yeah. It's so sad that the actress who played her died really quite young.
Yeah.
So,
there was
beautiful.
another TV show, wasn't there?
She did, called the Sarah Jane Chronicles.
Yeah.
Oh, we're showing our geekiness.
I didn't realize she died.
Yeah, no, it's very sad. Very suddenly, and, she was probably in her late 50s, I think. Really sad. Or she looked like she was in her late 50s. She was just very beautiful. And yeah, anyway.
I'll have to look that up after.
Yeah, sorry.
Is there a course that you've completed recently?
Oh, recently? Well, lockdown.
Or your favourite one?
My favourite one. Well, I'm about to embark on doing a proper course in photo organising, just to learn more. The more you get into it, the more you learn how much there is. And it's a terrific thing to be involved in, because most people have photos, and it's tricky. It's really tricky to organise them and keep them properly. But I was very lucky. Again, I was able to do a Bachelor of Science when I was a teenager, which was great. And I've done lots of courses on practical things. I do like practical skills, so logistics and I've done some courses to do with professional organising, just to get the business skills. Business skills. You can learn so much about social media, all the digital marketing that you really need to do to run a business. Oh, there's so much. And webinars. There's so many webinars available now with COVID. That's been great.
Is there one in particular that you remember?
Well, there's some fabulous women who are part of this business coaches, and there's a lovely lady called Kylie who lives up north of New South Wales, and she's just terrific on Zoom. She just rainbow and sunshine. It's lovely.
Amazing. So we'll get going with the interview questions now.
Certainly.
Yeah. So why is home organisation important?
Well, it's important when you come home to the place that you live, that you come in the door and you feel relaxed and you feel at home. And too many people really come home and they look around and they look at the way their house feels and the way their house looks, and they are stressed because maybe it's disorganised. There's so many different levels of disorganisation. Some people really need uncluttered spaces and very minimalist things in their house to make them feel comfortable. Some people actually feel more comfortable with visual abundance and lots of things and lots of knickknacks. But I think in the society we live in, that we're encouraged to buy things, we're encouraged to spend money and bring things home and have things delivered. We're very good at gathering items, and we're not very good at curating them and keeping them organised and having homes for them, and maybe discarding things that we don't need anymore. It's really tricky, and people get overwhelmed.
So what do you recommend people do in that situation where they're feeling overwhelmed?
It's good to understand what style suits you. And I think, again, there are some people who really need it to be very quiet visually, and some people who need it to be a lot busier and more vivid and colourful. Just have an idea of what suits you. But there's so many books, there are so many podcasts, so many things, YouTube. There are wonderful people who post about how to do it. Unfortunately, as we know with lockdown, when we were in our houses a lot, just being at home with all the resources we have electronically doesn't mean you're going to do it. So some people need that support of having a professional to come and give them accountability, give them skills, do the heavy lifting. It's really tricky for a lot of people physically to do the work, or just to get that motivation and accountability. And it's terrific when it's very motivating when you're paying someone else to help you. You get a lot more done, I think, quite often. So that's where my industry comes in. And we also if you are on the NDIS, there are some items that can be funded to have a professional organizer come in and just make your house safe and more livable. And can be very tricky if you have mobility issues to get it done yourself.
Yeah, I was just thinking with the NDIS. Have you worked with many people doing who are on the NDIS?
I have, and they're lovely, and it's such a wonderful organisation because you can choose quite a lot. You can choose where you spend your money, or it becomes obvious what needs to be funded, and the government funds it, and it'll make people's life better. And I've met the most lovely people, and they're so grateful, and their lives are better once you've helped them.
You mentioned before people have different styles. Some people want a minimalistic environment. Some people want something more visually interesting. How do you know which one you are?
Well, there are a lot of obviously online quizzes you can do. There's a woman in Canada who, if you Google Clutterbug, she's got a really good online quiz. Very simple, it's free. And just working out if you're the sort of person who likes to look at very plain cupboards, things are all tucked in behind the door. Or, I love visual abundance. So doors aren't that good for me. I need to be able to see it or I forget about it. And it's really good to know what sort of person you are. Sadly, what often happens is you get someone who loves quiet, plain, closed doors. Often they live with someone who likes things to be visual, and it gets to be a bit of a friction point. But you can usually sort it out. And once you know what you like, you can compromise or you can sort it out. But it's amazing how many different people live together when they're so different.
Maybe all the different dating apps need to have a box you tick.
Yes.
Do you have? Do you like visual clutter, or do you like plain rooms?
Yes, absolutely. And it is good to know. Like in most things, once you know yourself, this is why I love going to IKEA and buying this sort of thing, or I just get angry when I go into the bathroom because it's all messy or something. We're all different. One of the really top secrets to organising stuff is that getting another organising system, getting more boxes, getting more shelves, getting fancy devices is probably not the best way to organise your stuff. It is so much easier to organise your stuff if there is less stuff in your house. It's this really, the more I've seen, the more I've experienced this stuff, you can live with less stuff, and you probably should. But it's hard.
Yeah, and what do you do, I guess, if you can't part with it, what should you do with it?
Oh, so interesting. Really interesting, this attachment we have to things. We even have attachments to things we've given away to friends, and we kind of still feel like we own it, even if we've given it away. And also if someone we love has given it to us and we don't like it, we still feel like we should keep it because Auntie May gave it to me, and it's so tricky. Often, from what I understand from people who actually study this, academics, is that if there's been some trauma or attachment issue when you're younger, it can really push you into this being attached to lots of things and being super duper attached to items such as soft toys or things that you love. You can become really attached to, and then it gets terribly difficult to throw them away. And some people really need psychological help to detach themselves from things. Having a hoarding disorder is not a character flaw, but can really come from trauma and life experience. And it's something that can be worked on, but it's really tricky. And people think it's a character flaw, and it's not. It's like any other mental health issue. So I think that's really important to understand.
So, yeah, that's, it's so sad that people, I guess there's that stigma
Definitely.
that people can't get help
Yes.
or people, don't know how to get help.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've done a mental health first aid course last year, which was terrific, because you certainly don't want to make it worse for someone. And certainly my profession is not about ripping things out of people's hands to go in the dump. It's definitely coaching people and trying to unravel why and give suggestions and give alternatives to keeping everything. And they're usually people, I find people love to give things away to a good cause. And certainly the issues we've had with flooding up in the north of New South Wales has been a really good way to get people to give blankets and things they don't need, particularly in their house, old blankets that have been replaced. It's so easy to go and buy new blankets at the moment. And you need to think about really seriously when you buy a new thing that you can have an idea of moving on the old one that you don't like anymore, that's not as new, it's not as good, but still may have life and use for another person.
So you would recommend decluttering or, rehoming an item over storage?
I think you can't usually put more stuff into a container than will fit. And things need a bit of room around them to breathe. For instance, your garage. Garages are really interesting at the moment because we're not storing cars in them particularly because of the weather in Sydney, in most of Australia. We don't need that area for a car. A car can sit in a driveway or on the street, and you can use your garage for storage. But from what I understand is people are thinking more and more that I might have an electric vehicle. I will need somewhere to charge it overnight. I might need that garage back to put my car in to charge it. So I think we're going to have a bit of a change in what we use our garages for. And garages have traditionally been a place to dump things that we don't know what to do with. We go, well, I bought it, but I bought it because I'm going to be a camper. I'm going to go camping and I need all the equipment and I need all this stuff for the camping. And you might go once and then you might not like it very much, or you never go again because you just don't get to it. So you've got all this camping gear or exercise equipment or baby clothes. So, it's really hard. These are all items where I haven't made a decision on it. Am I going to be someone who runs on a treadmill? Am I going to be a camper? Am I going to have another child? Or should I just move? Should I, I don't know what I'm going to do to it, so I'll just leave it there. So it's really good to try and really be intentional about what you keep. So I've got some tips later on that I can run through.
Yeah, good. Yeah, my garage is full of everything but not my car.
I could see a light bulb going off.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will get electric vehicles.
My
That's the
garage
dream.
doesn't have a plug anyway.
No. I mean, that's just something to think about.
Yeah, but definitely
Garages,
something I've never thought
yeah.
about. Yeah.
No. And we get overwhelmed. We open the door, we look, and we go, oh, it's too much. It's overwhelmingly bad. I'll just shut that door. And when I've got a week, when I've got a whole weekend, I can do it. I'll do it then. But it's really tricky to get that sort of time, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, if it's raining, it's cold, if it's too hot, I'll do it next weekend. Very
Yes.
easy to do.
Those big spaces are very overwhelming. And I mean, they're so overwhelming that they've got TV shows that are devoted to this whole thing, and we love watching them, but it's a big job to do it by yourself. And you can get a professional to help you who has the skills and the resources to get it done in a good time, not drag on too long, but hopefully not be traumatic, just enough just to help you keep things moving.
So what tips do you have when it comes to like sorting out your garage?
So if you're starting a big job like that, there's two ways you could do it. You could definitely schedule in a big chunk of time, and I would advise to have a lot of things in place before you start. Good weather helps with the garage because often it's good to just take things out so you can see what you've got and be very, very careful what you put back in. So good weather helps. Not too hot, not wet. And just really think really carefully about if you are a camper, if you are someone who needs all those tools, all the things that kind of get stuck into garages. A lot of people like to keep the boxes of expensive items in case they sell them. Be really careful. Empty boxes take up so much room, and it's really hard to know whether something will retain its value, especially if it's been used. What else? Kitchen stuff. We're so good at buying stuff. It really such a thing that you really need to think every time you go out to buy something about what happens to the old one, or really should I have another thing in my house? Kitchen gadgets, they take up so much space. Often these things that are supposed to make your life easier in kitchen gadgets just take up space. They're so hard to wash. A knife usually would do a better job and really doesn't take up that much space. But so that's one. That's one way you do it. You do a project and you get it all sorted out. The other way you can do with any of your storage spaces in your house is just do 10 minutes. Just do a bit, just snack on it. Don't try and do the whole lot. But if you have 10 minutes, you can do a lot, and just try and sort it out. Often it's as simple as having 3 boxes. You have a box for donation, a box for put it into some other place, and a box or a garbage bag for rubbish. And just you start in one corner and you just do a bit for 10 minutes or as long as you've got, and you sort it out into those categories, and then it is sorted out.
Okay. How often should you sort of allocate time to this?
Well, so I do it professionally, and my house has still got too much stuff in it. I think it's a good daily or weekly practice to do is to go through a bit of your house and really assess whether it's something you need. It is lovely when you can look at an item and go, I don't need this, and I can give it to a charity shop and they can sell it and get money for disadvantaged people. It's good to know where things can be rehomed or recycled. And it's just wonderful when you've got too many sheets and you go, I don't know what to do with these sheets. And you can find a place like a pet shelter, or they're having a drive for flood victims, and you can just give it away. And then your cupboard isn't quite as squeezy, and it's so easy to buy new stuff. And it really needs to be one in, one out. I find that's just a terrific, very simple rule. If you buy a new set of sheets, you pick the ones you don't like anymore, and they go out. If you get rid of a bed, we had a situation where we didn't have any single beds left in our house, and I still had single sheets in the cupboard. So that was a very easy way. And I think I gave them away with the bed that we sold, so that people got a bed and they got some sheets with it, which was nice to help out a younger family.
So once you have decluttered, I'm sure that even if we have just the necessities, we'll still have too much. This is just the world we live in, I think. Or I mean, even just, you need multiple sets of bed sheets to live.
Yes.
So
maybe only three. Maybe
Three.
only 3 sets.
That's how many
One
I've
on the
got.
bed,
Perfect.
one in the wash, one in the cupboard. Sometimes you don't need
spare
more than
one.
that.
Yeah. So how much space should you allocate to storage of the things that you actually need?
Oh, that is so hard. It really depends. I certainly would be very wary of buying an off-site storage unit or renting it, just because once you're in that treadmill of having it out there and it's not around you, it's so easy to forget. And the monthly bills on those things can really mount up. You've got to be very, very careful about starting being in that sort of situation. So in your house, it really depends how big a house you have and how big a family you have. There's so many variables. What I will say is that you need to choose the items you put in storage space that's easy to access. So the easiest access you have is basically from head height to knee height. That's where it's easy to grab. It's things you use frequently. But the stuff above your head that you need a ladder for, and the stuff that's way down low, should be stuff that's you don't need as often. And it's really good not to cram things in, because things need space around them to breathe. We've all had the really wet weather and the mold. Having a bit of airflow around things is good. And just being able to pull things out easily and put them away. If it's too hard to put something away, especially if you're asking other family members to put things away for you, if it's really hard, they're not going to do it very well, and they may not even do it. So this is where it's good not to overstuff storage areas. Make them just the right size for what you're storing there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just thinking in my own life. I have, I forgot what the word is, like bins full of containers full of fabric.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And it means that every time I want to get some fabric, I have to dig my way through it, and I have to pull everything out, and then I have to tidy everything back up again and rearrange everything. And it makes it very annoying. And if I want to put fabric away, I kind of just leave it on the bench instead of trying to put it in the cupboard.
It's too hard. I know.
Yeah, because it's just annoying.
I agree.
Yeah.
I would recommend, if you have spare, a filing cabinet, or a bit of a filing cabinet, or something of that sort of vertical. So there's this lovely Japanese lady you may have heard of called Marie Kondo.
Yep.
And she's really into this vertical folding something, so some of them even stand up by themselves. But if you think of fabric, you could fold it as if it would fit into a hanging file. And you can use hanging files. And then
Yeah.
it's so easy, use the vertical. So you look down on it and you can sort of see just the edge of the fabric. That sort of looking top and only being able to see the top layer is really hard when you want to find something.
Yeah.
So being able to look at it from the top, but looking down on it can work really well.
That's a great suggestion.
My pleasure.
I'll have to.
And there's lots of
look
YouTube.
through
If
my...
you just Google it, fabric storage, vertical fabric storage, there's so much. People post so much about storage and how to do it, how they do it. And that may not work for everyone, but there's usually a solution out there that works. And some of it can be extremely low cost. Marie Kondo's certainly into that. Use a cardboard box you already have in your house. Maybe, the boxes that phones come in are terrific for drawers. They're just the right shape for some things, in your drawers, and just use the boxes you've already got. Don't keep them to sell the phone in, because
I always keep all my phone boxes, and then I throw out the phone, or I, give it to the, government to recycle, and then I still have the box.
Yes, I know. We do this just in case. Just in case is such a mindset we need to get out of. And if you haven't used it, I mean, obviously COVID's changed things with going out clothes and going out things, and we haven't been traveling. So those suitcases we haven't used in quite a while, but we probably will again, and we are. But often if you haven't used it in a year, in a normal year, it's often not something you need in your life. But just look at it and go, do you think you really are the person who's going to be crafting? Am I going to make all this scrapbooking stuff? Am I really a scrapbooker anymore? And if you are not, and you really know, move it on to someone who really will use it. And there are plenty of people who do. I've found this terrific theory about craft. Okay. It's not my idea. It's just something that I read somewhere, that often it's a two-step process. You can either be a very good buyer of craft items, and it's a totally different process to using it. And most of us very good at gathering, not so good at the second one. So easy. And then when you look at it, you go, oh, I feel so guilty. I spent so much on this and that one, and I spent so much on that one. So we don't tend to use it.
I had a self-imposed ban on buying fabric for about a year.
Yes. Yes.
Just to try and get my way through some of the fabric I already had.
Yes.
Didn't work.
Shop
but
your
then I
own
bought.
house. Yeah.
And then after a year, I was like, oh, cool, I can buy things again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, it's the way society is set up, and everything out there tells us to buy. And the government wants us to buy things, and the economists want us to buy things, but really sometimes it's just not correct for us to do that too often. That's why I love giving experiences to my family. I try not to. We buy tickets to shows because I don't want to burden them with extra items. We go and buy ourselves what we need. It's so hard to find a good gift that people don't actually have.
Yeah, I find that as well.
Yeah. And it's not that, I mean, when I was young, there was this real stigma of giving a gift card. It was like, oh, you don't know them very well, or, it's such a, shortcut. But now it's terrific because you can go and spend it on something you really, really want and need.
Yeah. I used to work in a shop where if someone came in and said, I want to buy this for this person, and we'd say, have they asked for this thing specifically? They say, no, I just think they'd like it. We say, no, buy them a gift card or don't buy them anything at all.
Really? That's awesome.
Because
I love that.
The place where I worked was so specific. If you didn't like the specific people was very niche with what they liked. And if you didn't buy specifically within their niche, it probably wouldn't get used.
Oh,
So we used to
wow.
always tell people,
Yes.
buy them a gift card or,
Yes.
you know, bring them in with you. Don't just buy them this thing because you think it's cool, because they probably won't.
Did you ever find people would not buy anything once that was said, or they would always buy the gift card?
I would say most of the time they bought the gift card, or they would go and think about it. We also had the added advantage of being probably the biggest store in that particular niche.
Yes.
So it's quite difficult to go somewhere else.
Yes, that helps a lot.
Yes, it does. But I think people also really appreciate it when you're honest. And you really give them your honest opinion on something. I think that's at least my experience with working in a store.
I just think that doesn't happen in a lot of places. And certainly in online shopping, you don't get that. It's so easy to hit buy. Yeah, I haven't been very successful at online shopping for personal things. It just never works. So I try not to. But I do know my daughters do. My daughters spend a lot of money on online things. And I worry because I've heard that, you know, if you return something, and a lot of big companies have that easy return as long as you do it quickly, that it's too expensive to process the returns, and the returns just go to landfill, which just appalls me. It's just awful. Maybe more, but, you know, I don't know. Anyway, it's not something I really want to have much to do with, that sort of, I like to touch and feel before I buy.
Yeah, same.
I really do, yeah.
So we did briefly touch on this a little bit earlier, but how does organizing your storage space impact your environment?
Enormously. It's so easy to put things in Australia, to put things into landfill. Most people, not everyone, but a lot of people have council-run hard rubbish collections. It's so sad when you see perfectly good things going into a crusher. And it'd be great if we knew, if there was more information out there about how to relatively easily repurpose stuff and get it to people who need it. You know, and that's where there are terrific Facebook groups where you can put a photo of what you've got for free, and they can be picked up and things. And that's what I like about the internet, is it does connect you to people. What else can I suggest? A lot of retail stores will take batteries back. There's a lot more of that sustainability mindset within big companies because consumers have demanded it. Europe's so much further ahead than us with packaging. You know, it's ridiculous to put bananas into plastic containers to buy them when they come with their own packaging. We overpackage food so much. It's so sad. So if we can all kind of try not to buy so much packaging, it's great that we've just had we're going to be having some environmental rules in New South Wales about plastic, single-use plastics and things. You know, we've all got to choose more wisely about what we buy.
Yeah.
They're my thoughts.
So say you go to someone's house for the first time. You know, they've asked you to come and organize their house.
Yes.
What's the first thing you do, like in terms of storing things?
Well, I think it's really important to just build a bit of rapport with the person. There's nothing worse than someone stomping into your house and then taking things and throwing them away. It's really important to to explain what you're going to do, what you could do, and work out what sort of person they are. And sometimes the service that I offer might be something they don't really understand, or it's been someone else buying it for them. Like your example of the shop, if a husband bought a wife a decluttering service and she's like, "What? I don't really want to," there's not a lot you can do. You can't take things off people, but a lot of it is mindset and just considering, getting people to consider that donating some of their items to somewhere good can just make their whole life easier. And just helping people through deciding what they want to donate or just recycle. And we ask so many questions. There's a lot of talking and a lot of sort of checking and making sure people understand where we're coming from. And saying things out loud really helps you decide. And it's something you can do by yourself as well. And I've done it myself. And, you might say, "And why are you keeping those 20 coffee mugs?" And you say, "Well, 20 people might come round to my house for coffee." And you go, "No, that sounds really stupid. I'm never going to have 20 people for coffee. I might have 10 tops. Can't imagine 20. And then you can go, "Well, which is my favourites?" And we all have our favourite coffee mugs. We do. We just do. And often in our kitchen, we have a spot for our coffee mugs. And if it's too full and it's too hard to put them away, or if it's cramped and I can't get my favourite one out, or there's ones at the back that I haven't used for many years, it's great to be able to let them go to someone else. I do that all the time. I look at them and go, "I haven't used them for a long time. They're not." Why? You work out, I don't use them because they're not the right size. They're a bit small. I like coffee in a bigger mug, or I don't want one of those travelling ones that sits in the car. I haven't used it. I don't want it. And then it goes. So you sort of unravel people's reasons for keeping things. And hopefully it's not traumatic. We try to be very non-judgmental. I don't think people change when you shame them. It's got to be sort of a very collaborative coaching and working out together what's the right thing to do. And I am a person who likes lots of things. I love things. But I do really recognise, and I try to coach people to go, well, a bit less can be much more comfy. And get the cream, get the really lovely stuff. Because if you've got, say, the example with fabrics, if all your fabrics in a place where it's too hard to get it, you've got 50 bits of fabric, you really only need enough for maybe 20 projects. There'll be some in amongst that 50. You'll go, "I thought I was going to like that paisley flocked denim. I thought I was going to like it. I see it now. I look at it now. 3 years later, 10 years later, I don't like it anymore. I'm never going to use it. Move it on." So these are the sort of thought process we try to coach people through, that they can decide they don't like that particular material anymore. Or they inherited it from their mother. Oh my gosh, inherited stuff is so complicated, because you get to a stage where you get your parents' stuff, and sometimes you get your grandparents' stuff as well. And it's just overwhelming. And there's a lot of guilt in getting rid of mum's favourite teapot. Even if you never have tea, you don't have tea in a pot, but I've got a teapot, or I've got 5 of her teapots, and I don't know what to do with them. These are the really tricky things that we help reassure people that, yes, you can donate those 5 teapots that you're never going to use. Mum won't mind. She really won't. If she loved, it's really, really important that you can coach people through that.
She might like that someone else is enjoying tea in it.
I think so. I think nice people like their stuff to be used and appreciated. And if it's not serving you, if it's not making your life better, if that stuff is preventing you from having a good life, I don't think anyone who loves you really wants you to keep it. That's the thing. It's a lot of people get so stuck, and it stops them living their lives really well because they're surrounded by too much stuff, and it haunts them.
So what are some common mistakes that people make when organizing their storage space?
They go and buy a storage solution, and they might buy the correct storage solution, but it might be the wrong size for that space. So it's really important to really measure very accurately, and taking into account skirting boards and like the lips on cupboards that stop you getting things out properly. You've got to really measure the space really well. And fundamentally, the other thing is they really try and keep too much stuff. So always declutter first. Try and really think about what you want to put into that space. Make sure everything deserves to be there because it's going to be used, it's going to be loved, and it's correct for what your life you're living now. And a lot of people buy a lot of books on organising and never read them, but they've got the books, so it's hard.
Then they have to organize the organising books.
We see that a lot. We go to someone's house and they've got beautiful stuff, and they really need us to help them. And there's so many organising things that they've tried, and it just doesn't help for some reason. They're stuck.
Is there anything that you want to touch on or you want to talk about specifically with storage space that I haven't asked any questions about?
Sure. There's another really good tip, I think. If you've got something in storage and you could replace that item in 20 minutes for less than $20, you probably shouldn't keep it just in case. And that's sort of things, camping equipment, tools, things like that. We do keep things just in case, and a lot of it we probably shouldn't. What I'm hoping to see more of in all over Australia is the shareable economy. So if you need a drill to drill a hole in your wall that you don't do very often, you might do it once a year or once every couple of years, you go and borrow a drill and then return it. And there's places called the Library of Things where you can borrow things. It's much better for everyone if you just borrow it, use it, and then give it back than it sit in your garage for the next 30 years gathering dust.
So a concern that I would have with,
Yes.
You said give or throw something out that, you could replace quite easily. My worry would be that I would just be contributing to, waste.
Certainly.
And, just because I haven't used the Christmas tree in 3 years, if I throw the Christmas tree out and next year I want to use the Christmas tree, I have to buy another Christmas tree, and that, I've bought 2 Christmas trees now. So how do you know, I guess?
You're never going to know 100%. But with Christmas trees, you probably will want it once a year. There's probably a really good pattern there for wanting it. And there's no problem about keeping a Christmas tree for once a year, for having it. And it's certainly on display probably for a month to 6 weeks. It's the things that you might have for your 21st birthday party or your 50th or whatever. There you buy a lot and then it's used for one night and you're not going to use it again. But with the shareable economy, with Facebook, you can pass it on. So there are places, if you ask, there are fabulous groups on Facebook and other places on the internet where you can give things or even sell things to people who really want it and can really use it. There are pay it forward groups in most suburbs that I know of. There's Craigslist, there's Gumtree, there's eBay, lots and lots of different ways to tell people you have a spare thing that you want to move on. And it's all about, working out whether you're going to need it again. And none of us can store everything that we buy. And it's really important to have a plan with things. It'd be ridiculous to keep an old big appliance. If your stove breaks, you don't keep the old stove. There are ways of repurposing it, not repurposing. You can move it on, and often you can plan for that, and you can get the people who deliver the new one to take the old one, or you plan for a hard rubbish or things like that. So plan it, think it through, work out how to not keep the old one as well as the new one. That makes sense.
So your, I guess, main tip for storage is to not purchase as much and to, if you purchase something, get rid of the old thing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Plan it through. Be really, really systematic about it. And it's really easy for me to say that. And I'm not perfect about it. And I've bought things thinking this is going to be fabulous. I really going to love it. And then after a little while, I've gone, that was a mistake. That really didn't work out very well, and it was a silly thing to buy, and perhaps I should move it on. And we all make mistakes when we purchase stuff that doesn't fit or doesn't work the way we thought. Try as much as you can to find somewhere for it to go that's an ethical way of disposing on it, because we can't keep using. I heard a statistic. I think Australians are using the resources of 4.5 Earths.
Wow.
And that's not sustainable. We want to be able to live on, the human race to live a bit longer than it's looking like it will. More and more we're getting worried about climate change. Landfills are filling up. I think the more we can really, buy ethically, don't buy too much. Try not to plunder the resources if we can, and not be quite so materialistic. Think about giving things that aren't things. Give experiences, make things, upcycling. I've become quite obsessed with visible mending. I mean, that's what was great in the lockdown, is you can look at all these lovely tutorials of mending clothes rather than buying new ones. And there's a lot of real skill shortage in sewing buttons, redoing hems. It's a very lovely thing to do if you can, and you save a lot of money by mending rather than buying a new one.
I managed to get 2 more years out of a backpack.
Well
just
done.
By mending it.
Good on you.
So I was very proud of myself. So I like the visible mending and, doing that type of thing. I'm also very, I don't like spending money.
How did you learn how to mend it? Did you just know, or did you look it up somewhere?
I just made something up. I mean, I do have a background. I do sew myself, and my dad also sews. So it wasn't like I just sort of made it up, but I was like, well, I'll get some interfacing. I'll get some nice thick material. I'll hand sew it because I can't get it into the sewing machine.
Was it perfect? Did it look perfect, or did it just do it? Did it?
No,
good enough?
It was like contrasting materials. It was on the back of the backpack. Like books were falling through. I just put a gigantic patch. And it worked for another couple of years until I think I mended it 2 more times, and I was like, the fabric is actually disintegrating at this point.
Yeah. Oh, look, these things have a life.
Mm.
Oh, but well done. That's awesome to hear that. Yeah. It's so sad when perfectly good or, mendable. I saw a post about this really expensive 60s furniture, like really, really special. And the only thing wrong with this beautiful chrome and leather armchair, was some of the stitching had come off one of the leather arms. So easy to fix, just, if you knew what you were doing, and people are throwing it away, So, yeah. And YouTube, you can Google anything now. How do I fix blah, blah? And you get a lot of choice on how to fix things. And some of it works so well.
Yeah. I do love watching all the sewing videos and seeing how people fix things up. So yeah, and
it's
also
so lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I follow a lot of people on Instagram as well who do the visible stitching.
Yeah.
I just love that.
I love it. Me too. It's so enjoyable, and people are so creative, and it's better. It's customized to you, and no one else can get that. Now, there's so many beautiful ways to mend things. Moth holes are great. I've been mending some moth holes, and that's going to be really, really easy and fun and enjoyable.
Thank you for your insights. Do you want to move on to the habit section?
Yes. Well, I think I've talked about habits, and
I think
the
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that your suggestion? The 1 in, 1 out.
That's a really nice, simple one. I've got that. I've underlined it. It's really important. So if you want, something you do regularly is good as a habit, isn't it? And there's different times of the year when I think there's more of a push to declutter and get rid of stuff. Spring can be a terrific time. The new year is a really good time to sort of reset things, and you can lean into that. But all right, I can get ready for just clearing house at certain times of the year. If you've got kids, sometimes just before their birthday is a really good time to clear out stuff they've grown out of. And it's good for them to be a part of that process, just setting up the next generation to understand that you don't keep everything, that you do move things on to people who may be a disadvantage. It's a lovely thing to give to people who don't have anything. I think birthdays and Christmas or school holidays is a great time to get kids involved. Another way to make it into a good habit is to have a box somewhere in the house, like a central spot where that's where stuff goes that I want to donate. Just make it really easy and frictionless. So about that, I would have the box that you're donating, one that the box goes to charity. So you're not then putting it from one to another, because it's got to be really easy. So that's a really good tip. It's not my idea. I've got this from these lovely other YouTube organisers that have a donatable box.
I have a question about that.
Tell me.
So, I have a box or I have a bag of things that I'm like, I don't need this anymore. But
box or bag's good. Yep.
It's been there for a year.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Any suggestions on how to push, instead of just collecting things to donate, to actually take the next step?
Obviously, I live in a metropolitan part of a big city, so I've got so many choices of where I can donate. It is tricky in regional areas to do this, but I have my box near the front door. And once it gets full, it's just so annoying that it has to go out. It's good to know a place that's relatively easy to get to that will take your stuff. If you look for a charity shop that's got maybe a drive-in back entrance where you can easily take it, or a place, a lot of them will we'll have an after hours even shoot. And it's much easier to park outside an op shop when it's after hours as well. Always be really mindful of donating good quality. Op shops get given so much terrible stuff that is really fit for landfill or gets wet because people have left it in the rain. So always be really mindful that you give good stuff that you would give to a good friend. Excuse me. It's op shops spend a fortune on landfill. Excuse me.
That's okay.
But I think for a habit to be easy, you've got to reduce the friction.
So you're saying you want to make a habit frictionless.
Yes. So make it easy. Make it easy to do it. So yeah, make friends with your op shop. Find out where it is. Find out where some of the after hours bins are for clothes. There's one very close to me that it's a proper charity one, not a commercially run one of those big metal bins. And so any clothes that I'm given or I want to donate, they go in there, and it's really super easy. So ask on Facebook where the easiest one is. Books are a bit hard to get rid of at the moment, and it's super sad for a book to not go back to a bookshop, like not to be loved. But there are books that op shops have terrible trouble getting rid of. Textbooks are hard. Encyclopedias aren't valued anymore. I admit that with books that the contents are not valuable to people, I sometimes compost them or I put them in my paper recycling because no op shop's going to be able to sell it. So you've got to be really careful. I compost cotton clothes that are only fit for rags. So if something's organic, like it's wool or cotton or bamboo, you can compost it if you have a garden. So that's something, they do that in rural areas to check the soil. They put a pair of white undies in the soil and they see how long it takes to break down, and that's a real measure of how good the soil organisms are. Who knew?
Wow, I had no idea. That's
Look it up. It's a thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
They will break down.
I mean, it makes sense. It was originally cotton. At least was originally a plant.
Absolutely.
So I guess why wouldn't it?
Yep. Well, wholly stained clothes, the op shop can't do much with them. They will put them to landfill. At least if we compost them or use them as rags in our house, they're not going straight to landfill. Landfill is terrible.
So any other sort of aspects of your habit you'd like to talk about?
Let me see. The other thing I'd say is that I would try and buy sustainably. And there are things that you have places in your house where have systems in your house so that recyclables have a home to go to before they go out to the bin, or I like to take soft plastics to Coles and I have a spot in my house that's really easy to put the plastics in and then collect it up. Make it easy, make it frictionless. Have storage places in your house that are the correct size, easy to access for you to place things that then are going out. It's so easy to say, and you might have to try a couple of different ways to do this. I find IKEA have terrific modular bins that make it easier to separate out your recyclables. I would say something like that. Shop your house to see if I have something the right size that will fit in the spot where I'm designating it. There's terrific new towers for waste bins that have like a pull-out bit that's for different things. Have a think about it. Yeah, really try and spend a little bit of time thinking how I can make it easier for myself to create a good habit.
So we'll go to the open mic section now. So
Yes.
that's where you can talk about anything that you're interested in. It doesn't have to be about home organisation if you don't want it to be.
Well, I would love to talk about clothes and visible mending and what happens to clothes. I love clothes. I'm wearing a very beautiful, fuzzy, warm jacket at the moment. And one of the things that was great in lockdown is I got my colours done. I've stopped colouring my hair, so I'm a lot more grey than I ever was before. And I was worried that would change what colours officially I should be wearing. I can't do it myself. I look at people, when people get colours and they get draped and they go, oh, she looks so much better in that yellow than that green. You're like, nah, I can't see it. I can't see why someone should wear a particular colour or not, but I'm very happy to take advice. So I got my colours done. So now I know what out of my wardrobe suits me. Apparently black, not so much. So it makes it easier. So I haven't got rid of my black clothes, but I won't buy any new ones. So black's really good for me for work because you need something that's a dark colour to when you're working with things that are a bit grubby. But I've got a lot more of an idea of what to buy when I replace something. And I do like this colour. This is one of my favourite colours to wear.
It does look good on you. I was looking at it earlier. You look so warm, so cuddly.
It's so cuddly. It's one thing we've learned with lockdown is having something soft and snuggly and warm is very nice at home, especially on a Zoom. You need to be warm on a Zoom.
Yes.
But also I've got a beautiful woolen, thin woolen shirt that's got a moth hole because it's wool and the moths love wool. So I felted that, and it's got a love now on the back where the hole was. It's got a beautiful love heart, which
cute.
makes it special to me. And no one really can see it except me, but it's nice. So I really, and that's definitely, Instagram's got amazing artists who do actually quite simple stuff. You just really got to go and research it and find it. It's lovely to do. And then you can extend your garments. And if you give a mothbally garment or a ripped garment to an op shop, however good it is, they probably can't do much with it, and it may well go straight to landfill, which is very sad.
Yeah, my friend was throwing a bunch of clothes away and asked me to come and have a look first. So I snagged myself a lovely wool cardigan, but it had a couple holes in it.
Yes.
So I got some felt and I drew some little mushrooms and I sewed them on.
Lovely.
And I think, like what you were saying, no one would have wanted this jumper that had 3 holes in it. But I'm now able to rewear that jumper. I just now need to find a time and a place to wear this jumper. It's the second part of what you were talking about, which is clothes that you actually wear.
Yes. And we're confused. We're very confused now. And I think some of us have, put on a bit of weight in COVID, and we're a slightly different size or have lost weight. And our wardrobes are very strange at the moment. They're not friends, really. I didn't wear much last winter in Australia because we were in lockdown for so much of it. You just wore tracksuit pants and jumpers.
Yes.
So, yes.
I wore a onesie a lot
Oh,
to stay
yeah.
warm.
Yeah. It's so nice. But I would also suggest, I've done this a couple of times, where you do a clothes swap. And a lot of councils in Sydney have been arranging them. I know in Melbourne as well, where you turn up with 5 items that are in good condition, and you take them and they're hung up, and then you go back and you swap. And that can be a lovely way to get new things, but without any cost or very minimal cost, and it saves things from landfill. And you've got a net. You are actually taking 5 things out and getting maybe 4 back. So you're not adding to your wardrobe, you're just swapping it out. So I would, if you see that advertised in your area, I would tell you how much fun it is. This is so important about clothes. I think in the past people have been really worried about wearing other people's clothes, shopping at an op shop, buying secondhand. They don't like the idea of wearing something that someone else has owned. And I just want to tell people that anytime you go to even a really nice hotel, you're sleeping on sheets that someone else has possibly slept on naked. And they've been washed. They've been washed really well. There really should be no problem about having something close to your skin that's owned by someone else, as long as you wash it again. And so I would say that's something people should think about if they're worried about secondhand clothes.
Yes, I always wash I wash all of my clothes even if it's new.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But unless someone had a truly terrible skin disease,
Yes.
you should be fine. And
they
probably won't give that clothes anyway.
No. Well, yeah. And even in a new shop, if you're buying a new garment, someone might have tried it on and then put it back on the hanger. So, yeah. I think that's really important to think about the fact that it's okay. And there's plenty of clothes have such a good life with 2 or 3 different wearers. So don't overthink it.
If it's okay, we'll move on to some questions from the audience.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes. So our first question. So what strategies can we use to choose the right storage place for our house?
Work out how often you would need to access the items that are in the storage. So if it's something you'd use every day, have it somewhere easily accessible, somewhere between your head and your knees, so that it's easy to get in and out. Heavy things are probably better lower, just for safety. But that might mean moving things around to make space, and try not to cram things into storage spaces. Make sure they've got a bit of room to breathe.
So what are some things we should consider before purchasing storage?
Well, it depends if it's going to be in your house or what's in a place that you own, or off-site. I'll just cover off-site. It is really tempting when you have to store something in a hurry that is large and bulky, that you purchase an off-site storage. Really have a think about how much that item is worth before you set it up for a monthly fee. For instance, say a relative needs to move out of their house in a hurry, and you get stuck with their furniture or their possessions. Just assess it really carefully whether their items are valuable enough to pay a monthly fee. Maybe consider having a cut-off time for, I have to decide by a certain date because it can be just a rolling thing that you keep paying for years and years, and you can pay out in storage fees a lot more than the items are worth just because of delayed decisions.
How do you avoid turning your storage space into a hoarding area?
Really good question. I would say make sure if you're putting items into boxes into the storage area, labeling it, make sure that boxes are labelled at least, the very least, on two sides of the box so that you can really know what's in there at a glance, because you will forget. If you're storing things that have a limited time, so for instance, business paperwork, tax records, you can look up to see how long you have to keep those items by law. And I would suggest you put a date on it to say disposal in 2026, or 7 years or 5 years from the date that they are relevant, and that can make things a lot easier and simple. It's so hard to remember what's there, so make it really obvious what's being stored in that space can make it easier.
That's great advice. I have a lot of banking documents that
you don't
I don't
need
know
to
if I
keep
need
them
it
forever.
anymore.
No, you don't. So much is electronic now, and you can access it if you need to back at the bank.
Yeah. So how can you have a dedicated storage area when you don't have that much space at home?
Oh, that's a tricky one. You can do it by really knowing storage. And you can certainly, the internet's a great resource for finding how other people have done it. There are terrific videos about people who live in tiny houses, how they keep things. As long as you don't try and store more than the space is capable of, some storage solutions that you can buy can really help with that. And we talked about possibly putting fabric into filing cabinets. That's a great way of using something that's a little bit out of the box, just to. But it's great to have some structure in the storage space to help you store things, maybe upright, compartments. It's all quite tricky to generalize about, but the internet has lots of really, really terrific ideas if you can work out the right search terms on how to think. And places like Amazon and Kmart and Howard Storage, they want to sell you stuff, but you need to measure before you buy, because it's no good if it doesn't fit.
Yes. Made that mistake.
Yes, it's so frustrating.
So our last question, is it necessary to invest a lot of money into storage space organisation?
No, it is not, because it's terrific if you can shop your own house, look for boxes that are the right size. Again, the measure. Often there are terrific kitchen plastic items that might work in another area that's not the kitchen, like a Tupperware thing can work in the bathroom. Kmart has very low cost organising things. For people who need to be reminded what's in a box, I would recommend something that's clear plastic. Just makes things so much easier when you can see at a glance what's there. Repurpose, ask your friends. Op shops have great storage things that people have used and then discarded because it was the wrong size. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, and throwing a lot of money at it doesn't always work very well.
Yes, I think I need some of that at the moment.
YouTube's great.
Yeah.
Ask a professional.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Just really really think it through before you buy stuff. It often doesn't make life better to have another item in your house, and it can make it harder. And we can't keep filling our house up. It just doesn't work. Things need to go out as well as in. And it's preferable to, if things go out, they're in good condition and can be given away or sold. Maybe the other thing we haven't really touched on is selling things. And that's another option if you've got some excess products in your house. And it can be really easy. It can be really, really good thing, and you can make some money. Just take very clear photos and price things appropriately. People may not know that you can do a search on eBay if you're on a computer. So this doesn't work on your phone, but if you're on a computer, you can do a search on what items have sold for on eBay. So not what people want, but what people actually get. So you can search on an item and see if it's sold for $1,000 or $2, but actually what it's sold for. So I'd recommend that, and that will help you with your pricing.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's great advice.
Yes, only on a computer.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, thank you so much for all your advice with storage. The one in, one out solution is, I think I need to implement that in my life as well. Or maybe just throw out some stuff first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just 10 minutes.
Okay.
Just start.
Yeah.
It can be really, you can get a lot done.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on the show. It was really great to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Gabriella.
You've been listening to Room by Room, produced by the Home Organisation Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes like this from across 10 life management perspectives can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and any other podcasting apps available on your smart devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating, sharing, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people to find it so we can grow and continue to bring you quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website, ho.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Gabriella Joustra, and thanks for tuning in.